Well, okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Bertie Roux podcast. I'm very excited about today. I think this is episode 32. Bertie, we're doing a lot of content these days. And how do you feel about what we're talking about?
First of all, good afternoon to everyone and all the listeners there and the people that tuned in. Much appreciated. Yeah, the contact is extremely important because we are working towards an end goal of establishing a sensitivity for what we've been saying all along about a vision with imagination, building towards the understanding that without a vision, we may not as well get out of bed in the morning. There must be purpose. So overall, every single one of us must have a goal. And the goal, if the goal is big enough, if it's linked to a vision, I promise you, if you have that vision, your future will get closer to you. And that's what we're working towards. And there's a lot of elements and self-identification and knowledge about self and the future, how to define the future in terms of foresight and how to apply overview, in other words, bird's eye view, just to get a better understanding of how do we define our vision and how do we work towards that.
Awesome. Bertie, today I want to talk about trusting the new formidable you. What is that about?
That we talk about the principle of insight. In other words, getting to know the formidable you. Because the problem is that we don't really, and I include myself, we don't really know what we are capable of because we don't know really who we are. And trusting implies knowledge and understanding and appreciating of who I am, the real me.
Okay, Bertie. So if I say I'm going to trust myself, I think one of the big things that we were talking about is how do I find myself? You talk us through that process.
The process of insight is really the process, because in order to trust, I must understand. If I want to jump over a chasm, then I must know and understand that if it's half a meter, I can do it. If it's 5 meters, I'm going to struggle. So that trust in your ability. So you almost had to have done it before so that you can understand I can. Because sometimes that understanding and the trust must be more than just real. It must come out of experience. But at the end of the day, the whole concept of insight comes with introspection. I must get to my core and understand myself. Now, that's a very difficult concept. And I'm not talking about psychology to understand my psyche. It is understand my abilities, my beliefs, and everything that I've worked on in the past. But the past could also be, and probably, and most of the time, is also my limiting factors, because I've grown up with people telling me what I can and what I can't. And often that can't is I cannot. I'm not able to. So that trust, to be able to build the trust, I need to get to my core, to understand, as I say, the true, real you. I must open myself up and understand myself. Spend some time in front of the mirror and go beyond that. Get people to help me, to delve into me and to get to my core. It could be extremely emotional, could be extremely challenging, but that is where we start. Because the moment I know that and I know my abilities, I can trust myself unconditionally.
Should I set myself up for success in the way that I set small milestones and goals in my life where I can see that I've reached certain goals, even if it's small ones, and then develop a track record for myself, will that help me to start trusting myself more?
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. Taking little kindergarten steps toward an interim goal, because achieving that vision of yours, there will be interim goals that's taking you close to that. And yes, you're 100% right. If we can't trust ourselves, because we may then just say we have failed. And failure by itself is not is a learning experience. It's not a fatality. It means that I'm never going to try again. It's just temporary setback. But as I grow at a kindergarten steps, I learn to trust myself and understand myself, and the self-belief is building, and I'm growing in stature, and I becomes much bigger a person because of that self-belief and therefore self-trust.
What part does being self-aware play in this process?
Just say that again, please.
What part does self-awareness play in this process?
Self-awareness is where it's like a golfer. I mean, self-awareness means, can I hit the ball 300 meters across this water, or 75 yards high over these trees? I must have done it before, so that I'm aware about my abilities, so that I can trust I can do it. Sometimes we challenge ourselves and say, maybe I can, because I've almost done it in the past. That also all comes with self-belief. I fully embrace that and believe that.
Okay. Let's talk about self-care. When we look at trusting yourself, what are some of the things that you can do to take better care of yourself, and is that a part of building trust with yourself?
If you really respect yourself, you will look after yourself physically and mentally. Okay, there's no doubt in my mind. One of the true challenges that people often face, for example, is losing weight. And I want to use an example because at the end of the self-care is also part of that. Am I living a healthy life? Am I exercising? Am I eating right? Those kind of things is part of, because what I put into my body is what I'm going to get out. If I look after my body, it will look after me. So that's a principle of self-care. So in that process, understanding your abilities is when we think about losing weight. I always say it doesn't help you tell me I want to lose weight, because if you've lost 1 kg or 2 kgs, you probably reach your goal. But that's not really what you want to achieve. You feel that you are carrying 10 kgs extra weight or 20 extra weight. So your goal should be to lose that. But the better part of the process is to find yourself a goal and being able to visualize that goal and that end state, that you've really reached a point where you can say, I have lost weight and this is what I have achieved and this is what I look like now. So if your goal is losing weight, set yourself a target and say, I want to look like Angela Jolie or something. Probably you won't necessarily reach that, but at least you've got yourself a vision in your mind what it would look like if you've lost your ultimate excess weight. Then you won't stop and say to yourself, I have done well, I've lost 1 kg. It's like typical New Year's resolution. The same with men. We're going to go to the gym and build some muscle. Set yourself a goal. I don't say that you must be a second-rate Arnold Schwarzenegger, because the goal is still to be the best you, first-rate you. But set yourself a goal and saying, if I can look like, almost like Arnold Schwarzenegger, six pack, big muscles, then I'll be happy, because then I'll say, then I've reached my goal. You have to have that vision and of yourself. And if you've got that vision, that is what you want to reach. That's how you should trust and look at yourself. Self-care comes with that. Self-care is reaching your goals and living a full life in all aspects of it. It doesn't help. I say to myself, I've goals of making millions of rand. In the meantime, at the end of the day, there's nothing left of me. That should not be your goal. It should be in balance.
I think something that might be connected to that and in balance with self-care is also self-respect. And I think self-respect has a lot to do with your identity, how you feel about yourself. And I think this is a big part of building up that identity, that just, process that we're going through of I am who I am. And so what do you think what role does self-respect play in this process as it's connected to self-care and taking care of yourself?
Before I get to the self-respect, I want to latch onto what you're talking about just now in terms of, your person, your identity, because that identity is probably the most important. Because you must learn to love this person, this persona, this vision in the mirror unconditionally. So I must create and build myself an identity, which is nothing else than also building a brand. I must build myself a brand, whether I say it out loud or I just represent it. But when people look at me, they must almost be able to link and attach to me a specific brand, the Bertie Roux brand, the Ivan Viljoen brand. Because that's the identity that I want to take out there to the world. And I say again, I want to be the best me instead of a second rate to somebody else. But somebody else helped me to give me a vision of what it's possible. And I can link myself to that and work towards that as a goal. But that identity is so important. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. Because who am I? Who am I really? What are other people? Let's just get the planes leave this place. Like I say, in terms of the identity, that should be the start of everything, because then I can trust myself and I can believe in myself, irrespective of what I look like. I always say to people, if you dress for the occasion, you feel so much better. If you prepare yourself for an interview, for example, dress professionally for the interview, because with that you take into the interview much more self-assurance and self-care and self-love, and you will talk from that point of view, other than you're sitting there and you don't feel so comfortable because you didn't clean your shoes and there's a hole in your shoes, or there's 2 buttons missing on your shirt. You cannot bring your example and your presence to somebody else if you don't believe in yourself. That's when you get these questions that you feel you want to go underneath the table. And the questions should actually lift you above the table, because you are the best possible version of yourself, and you must dress accordingly. And it doesn't mean you must wear all these branded names. That's what I always say to people. You don't need a brand name to look and feel great the way you've dressed.
Bertie, what does emotional intelligence, does it play a part in this process for you?
I think emotional intelligence is one of the things that were bandied around quite often nowadays. Many years back, that wasn't the issue. We didn't think about emotional intelligence. We were talking about maturity. It's like at school saying that the girls mature quicker than the boys, and therefore the boys are still stupid, and the girls are already young adults. And that's how we compared it in my time many, many years back. Now we talk about emotional intelligence, and it's quite important because your ability to emotionally manage yourself and situations is key. Because if you don't have that, you'll be bulldozed, and you allow people to go over you. Doesn't matter whether it's your clients, whether it's your boss or your family or whatever the case may be. In order to handle yourself and represent yourself, there's an element of that emotional intelligence. But it didn't exist before, so we coped. But we coped because we trusted ourselves. There's an element of self-belief, and to me, an element of self-belief represents, by definition, emotional intelligence.
I know that last week we shared some quotes and brought some research into the thing. I want to share a quote with you that I think you'll like, and then you can just tell me what you think. It's by Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell is a famous quote, apparently. He said, "The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are so certain of themselves, and wiser people are full of doubts." What do you think?
Why do you want me to talk about the American election here?
Just, it's so true. The people that a lot of times, people that don't really have a grasp on what needs to be done are the confident ones, and the people, we come across them a lot, where people that we know have wisdom to share, they are people that recluse, and they're sitting in the back, in the background, that kind of thing.
So often the loud people are actually the immature and the insecure people, and that's why they're loud. And the bulk of the people don't understand that. They would think that those people has arrived. They are the people that I must mimic, that I must be like. But in the actual fact, those people has got no feet. I mean, they are up in the clouds. They're creating a persona that they're not, and they can't keep it up. But it takes a while, and it takes some thinking, and let's call it emotional intelligence, to be able to see through those people, that they're not really what they represent. That is just a false persona, and that's a front. But that's what happened in life. People follow the loud people because they think they're right, and the almost the mass hysteria take place, and people follow those people. Until one day they wake up and say, I have been indoctrinated here by fools. And unfortunately, that's what happened in life. And those people get away with a lot. And some of them becomes highly successful because what they do is they use other people, the energy of other people. They use for them to look good. And we know that one of the principles that we always say is that you want to be successful, surround yourself with successful people, mix with successful people, and those people that are so loud, and I use loud here loosely for by definition what you've stated. We follow those people because we believe that they're successful, and as I say, hardly ever they are. They can't keep up that persona. Sometimes they drop their guard, and then we see through them. So it doesn't help. Just be yourself.
There's an article online, and the person's name is Mark Manson. He's talking about why you can't trust yourself. So let's turn that around a little bit and talk about, is it important? So some of the points here I just want to pull out. Does this process have to do with knowing what makes you happy and what makes you miserable?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the context of your question. Just say that again.
There's a person, Mark Manson. He wrote an article, "Why You Can't Trust Yourself." So he wrote some points here which I want to turn around and just maybe two or three and look at them. He says, do you think you'll trust yourself better if you have, you're constantly talking about the introspection that you do. Why you need to know what makes you happy and also what makes you miserable. And if you are more self-aware of that, then your self-trust will increase.
Obviously, as I say, if you do what you love doing, you become a different kind of person. And if you're confronted in situations where you don't enjoy it, you become a different person because you actually inadvertently withdraw and want to get out of it. It's almost a fight or flight, where when the atmosphere and the surroundings is positive, I'm engaged. And the moment I'm fully engaged, I can have the opportunity to live my passion. I mean, it's very much when we think about the whole brain principles that I'm a very staunch supporter of, is that if I know what kind of person is, what is my thinking preference, what makes me happy, I will make certain that I'm looking actively for situations where I can be almost more happy and more positive. So I do what I love doing. And I try and manage to do less of what I don't enjoy. That saps my energy and take it away from me. So in one case, I can say, as a manager or a supervisor, I can delegate those things that I don't necessarily enjoy, and I can actively source and look for opportunities where I can live my passions, do more of the things that I do. So that inadvertently, in terms of the gentleman's statement about trust yourself, it's easy to trust myself to do the right things when I'm in an environment, in a situation that I enjoy, that I've taken myself into because I love doing those kind of things. And I can trust myself then unconditionally that I will do the right thing, I will say the right thing, and it will come across in the right way. Whilst in the other situation where I don't enjoy it and I don't choose to spend time in, that I must always, in that sense, think what I'm doing there, because I can make myself look like a fool. And that's why these negative things drains your energy, because you're constantly thinking. You are not in auto drive, you are manual drive, thinking about every action. And then I can support what the guy is saying. If you do what you like doing, you will be able to trust yourself.
In talking about trusting yourself, a lot of times we make bad decisions that gives us repercussions in our life and causes our lives to be less than desirable. Do you think making better decisions has an effect or an impact on this process of trusting yourself?
Remember, making bad decisions doesn't make you a bad person. We're not perfect. None of us are. So making bad decisions always come through a reflection, looking back and saying, yeah, it wasn't such a good decision. But at the point where I made the decision, I believed that was the right decision for that year and now. Later on, it reflected to be not such a good decision. But we have to make bad decisions as well in life, because those are opportunities through which we become stronger and experienced and understand ourselves better. So I'm not trying to try and say that we must be so careful in any action that we can only do the right things, because the right things is often only the right thing in retrospect. I don't know because I don't know the future. But if you actively seek to do things that you love doing, then you'll get into situations where decision making will become easier, because it is in line with your vision and in line with your purpose. So then we will make more often good decisions than we would make bad decisions.
What do you think about, when you look at trusting yourself and you then start looking at, am I selfish and I just want my own way, or I'm looking at things that happen and I'm biased, and so I look at those could also be things that cause consequences for me, and then I stand back and I look and I say, that was maybe not the best way to do it. Especially reflecting on your character. Let me give you an example. Um, I might go and I drive on the road, and someone skips a red robot or crosses it, and I'm like furious, and I'm like, I can't believe that he's just done that. But now I might cross the red robot, and now what I do is I go justified, or I qualified by saying I made a mistake, or I was in a hurry, or those kind of things. Um, does that play a big part in trusting yourself, in kind of knowing how does my character play in situations that I face?
There would be a couple of angles to the answer to your question. What come to mind to me, firstly, is to say that never burn bridges, because you might need to cross them on your way down. Okay. And that's important. Whatever you do in life, it should always be fair to yourself, but it should not come at a price to others. And because that would not be the right thing to do. So if I cross the red light on purpose, I'm putting everybody, even my own and everybody else's life at risk. That's stupid. That just is absolute stupidity. The question is whether it's been thought of, or whether the person was just busy on his cell phone. As I say, one of the biggest purposes and of a cell phone is that it caused most of the accidents nowadays on the roads internationally. So that solely responsible for most of accidents in the world is the cell phone. But we thought it's just an instrument that you phone with. But let's get back to the point. So I say, and I'm absolutely convinced about it, that the old story of saying that if I look in the mirror and I love myself and I spend time in front of it, that I'm vain, I owe it to myself to love myself first. Because if I can love my first, then I have learned how to love others too. Because if I love myself, I can love others. And I say again, whatever I do in life, whatever I create, and what I want to do, I can do it with other people, but I should not do it through other people. So there should not be a price tag to my success. And people that I look around and I see all the people that I've stepped on, the wrongs that I've done, then I cannot enjoy my success, and it won't last. So unconditional love means I can be jealous about who I am, because I must be proud about who I am and who I become. But that is what I have, not at the cost of others. That is not part of the price of me becoming the best possible me that I can be.
We're talking here, the statement that, and the title of this is Trusting the New Formidable You. What would you say is the process for that renewal to happen in ourselves? We're talking in the scope of vision with imagination. What is the process of me having a new perception of myself so that I can now start trusting myself more?
Ivan, that is a very important thing, and that's where we need to spend a lot of time. Every individual needs to spend a lot of time with himself to get to understand and know yourself better. I always say that, we've been born unique, and we were gifted by God with talents that we can use. The uniqueness of us makes us unique, and not just in God's eyes, but everybody else's eyes, but must be most important in our own eyes. There is nobody else like me. I must understand that. And I must absolutely believe that. Even twins, different. So I start out with that concept of my idea, but then I'm molded through circumstances. I'm molded into a persona that I become. Not, and often not by choice. It is just a culture that I'm born in. It's a school environment that I've been brought up with, and all of that has molded me. I must now be able, when I, not necessarily just adulthood, whenever I get to the wisdom and saying, who am I really? Stand up and say, who am I really? And we talk about getting rid of all these kind of things. Transactional analysis talk about these kind of things. And I always say that as we grow up, we experience life through smell or action or taste or whatever. But every experience that we have, we then create a tape. It's like a videotape, and we store it in our subconscious mind. And as things happen and those kind of situations reoccur, we simply just access that tape, play it again, and we know how to respond. And that is why certain bad habits get played out over and over again. We need to be able to identify and find those tapes and delete them and to replace them. Because we also know that our brain is not able to distinguish between right and wrong. We just store experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we therefore don't know, and our brain don't know, where to store the bad things and the good things. It's just there. So we need to get in there and experience that and delete them. And I don't think, honestly, that us as a human being has the ability, without help, to be able to go into ourselves and deep and open our chest and rip out our heart and check it out, and our brains and check it out and say, where's those things? Let me replace them with the good things in life. We don't have the ability. We need help to put those things in perspective. And then because of that, okay, fine, I'm going to take this experience and I'm going to change it and make it change into a positive experience and restore it again. And when that situation comes, there's a better response from me. But it's difficult. So we grow up in certain areas and we move into different areas. We go to university, go to colleges, we marry into different families. You know, we have friendship circles, and all those kind of things impact on our lives. And because we don't necessarily know ourselves, we always look at other people to be perfect and better. So and ourselves as being imperfect. So we take the lead from others. So it's extremely difficult. So how do you get that? How do you get to the point? That's why a coach is so important. That's why a mentor is so important. That he can say to you, let's put those things in perspective. Let's help you. Let's just think about, film stars, very popular musicians and singers in the world, and how they've gone off the road by using drugs and all those kind of things. Think of Elvis Presley, whatever. I mean, we can mention so many examples, because they've grown up so good. They never developed the persona to match that. So they never had. So the Elvises of the world also had, feet of clay. Unfortunately, because they didn't spend enough time to build a foundation solid enough to manage what they've achieved in life. They've set that vision, they've reached it, and now what now? So what is the life after I've achieved? But I'm rambling on. But the fact of the matter is, I need to understand who I am. I need to talk about a blood transfusion. I need to get a blood transfusion, get all this old blood, wrong, bad blood out, and get new blood in. But when do I know that? How do I know that? It is by just building yourself up in terms of trusting, believing yourself, building yourself, becoming stronger, clear, right? So you're building your foundation stronger and more solid and higher every time. And when you have to fall back, you just fall back to that level of trust and self-belief. you don't fall back to nothing, to an emptiness. That is so important, and I can't teach people to do that as a self-program and a self-course. It's a difficult, extremely difficult concept. That's why there's so many people out there developing programs and courses to help people to be better at being themselves. But we are better at certain elements. We are not better building ourselves up. We are, even in building ourselves up, there's an imbalance that make you vulnerable, because that might be your Achilles heel that pulls the mat from the carpet from underneath you. It's a very difficult concept, and it's a very important one. And thanks for asking that. We need to do this introspection and get to understand ourselves. And then when we find that, it's saying, that is the unconditional me. I'm going to learn to trust the voice on my shoulder, because I know this voice in the shoulder is more correct than wrong. And I'm going to believe and trust my own judgment, because I've learned to experience that I've made the right course at the right time. And that's all we need. I don't need to ask Mary or Johnny what I should be doing. I should know it myself. Sometimes I can ask advice. I can ask advice from a mentor, but a mentor just asks me, just help me to make the better decisions. It doesn't make the decisions for me. It's just to help me to make better decisions. And that's crucial.
But I think as we end this call, I think you've set up our next topic for us very nicely. And that is, I think, and you said we can spend a lot of time on that. That is spending time with yourself. And so I just want to, in the research that I've done for this call, there's some things that I got, simple exercises like writing down all the things that you like about yourself. Keeping a note of positive things that other people say about you. And there are also ancient writings where they say you got to keep on encouraging yourself, etc. So as we end this call, don't you want to talk to us and just set up the next session for us, and just give us an idea of why spending time with yourself is so important?
You know, we are human beings, and none of us is perfect. But the problem with what we face is that we have got a desire to be perfect, but a perfection in our own perception, and therefore in our own factual life. And when we look at other people, that's where we find the answer to what is perfect and what is imperfection. But the problem is that we don't distinguish between me as a human being and the other person as a human being as well. I too have certain elements that may be perceived by others to be perfect, but I know that I've got a lot of other imperfections in myself, which I've learned to live with, because that makes me a whole person and a human being. I cannot be perfections, but we so often, in the drive to be perfect, lose perception of the real world. And that is when we end up going into situations where we start disbelieving our own abilities and capabilities, and just believe that we are total failures. And we are unfair. And we tell it to ourselves, and we say it over and over again. And with that negative talk, we become a negative human being, and we're not fair to ourselves. We should not be that. We should understand that we are not born perfect. Nobody is. And spending therefore time with yourself implies learning to love this individual unconditionally, with my imperfections and with my perceived, therefore factual perfections. Even as a gist, a hairless head.
Awesome. Thank you, Bertie, so much. For those that's watching the call right now and also those that's watching it later on, please feel free to ask your questions in the comments below. Bertie will pay attention to those and get back to you. Thank you, Bertie. That was number 32. Number 33, we can spend some time on ourselves, talking about spending time with ourselves. Thank you so much for your time today. And I'm looking forward, especially to the next session, because I think that concept of just alone time, me time, and you've mentioned it a couple of times in our sessions. I think that's going to be a very exciting session.
Thank you, Ivan, and to everybody out there, please do spend some time more time in the mirror. Start to love yourself unconditionally, and thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, everyone. We're looking forward to seeing you again next week. The Bertie Roux podcast on Tuesday. Thank you.